Let's turn to Chris Wallace now, anchor of Fox News Sunday. Where do we go with this story, and where does it go from here, Chris?
You're talking about the Kushner security story?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is a subject that the House Democrats were already planning to investigate, the whole question of how security clearances have been given out by the Trump White House. According to the New York Times, there were contemporaneous memos because they were so upset that reportedly the president ordered them to give this top-secret clearance to Kushner, that both the then Chief of Staff, John Kelly, and the then White House counsel, Donald McGahn, wrote down memorandums stating that they had opposed this and the president had ordered them to do it. And I would think that there's probably a congressional subpoena in their future, probably in the House Oversight Committee, much like Michael Cohen, to testify as to whether or not it's true.
We just spoke to Kellyanne Conway, getting fresh White House reaction. She was at CPAC. A little hard to hear, but we wanted to get fresh White House reaction to this story this morning. Here's how she responded, Chris.
We don't discuss security clearances. I'm not even going to discuss my own. But I will tell you that the president has the absolute right to do what was described, but we're not going to discuss that. I will tell you, as these stories are breaking, Jared Kushner was over in the Middle East working on behalf of the president, on behalf of this country.
But of course, the left is quick to point out, or any critics of this administration, that we have heard the president's daughter, Ivanka Trump, comment on her husband's security clearance, saying that the president was not involved, and the president himself has said he wasn't involved. So they commented in the past on this. Now the White House response is that there is no response.
I would have to call what Kellyanne Conway said there a classic non-denial denial. When she says we don't talk about this, as you point out quite rightly, Sandra, they have talked about it in the past. If it were false, if in fact the president hadn't been involved, I can't imagine they wouldn't say that. They have no qualms about saying when news is fake, when reporting they think is inaccurate. They're not saying that about this story, so I think that speaks for itself.
Meanwhile, moving on to North Korea and the words of the president when there, saying that he takes Kim Jong-un at his word over not knowing at the time about the treatment of Otto Warmbier. We also asked Kellyanne Conway about the latest statement from the family. She responded after just talking to the president with this.
Well, respectfully, Senator Graham doesn't know that, and I'm telling you what the president just told me, because that's where I work. And the president said that, of course, he agrees with the Warmbier family. North Korea is responsible for the death of their son. He's always said that will not change. What he believes Chairman Kim to have said is that he was not aware of what had happened to Otto Warmbier when it happened. I'm relaying to you what Chairman...
The White House sticking by the president's words, that he's taken Kim Jong-un at his word, that he didn't know at the time, but does indeed hold North Korea responsible for Otto Warmbier's death.
This strikes me as just a completely unforced error by the president and the White House. Why, on an issue like this, there's no question that Otto Warmbier was brutally tortured, basically killed by the North Koreans. Why on earth would you side with Kim Jong-un over the Warmbier family in the sense of outrage? I mean, first of all, there's a real question whether the captivity and the incarceration of an American is something that the dictator of North Korea wouldn't know about. But even if that's true, why would you want to get into this fight? The fact is the North Korean regime was responsible. You're getting pushback now from the Warmbier family. You're getting pushback from the president's former UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, who says that she holds the Kim regime responsible. And you had a lot of Republicans, Senate Republicans yesterday, like Cory Gardner of Colorado, say that Otto Warmbier's blood is on Kim Jong-un's hands. So I just don't understand why you'd even get into this and make it sound like in any way you're siding with Kim and saying that he is somehow to be held blameless for what happened to Otto Warmbier.
We put together a list this morning of those Senate Republicans. Rob Portman was one of them, warning the president not to be naive about the brutal nature of the North Korean regime. Lindsey Graham suggesting that maybe the president was trying to leave some space to negotiate when he said this. Susan Collins surprised that the president would accept those words at face value. We will continue to watch all of this. I'm sure you will as well. Chris Wallace, you'll have more on the second Trump-Kim summit this Sunday. You will be joined by, Chris, National Security Advisor John Bolton Sunday.
Yes, indeed, and plenty to talk about. North Korea, and we'll obviously ask him also about the warm beer controversy, what's going on in Venezuela, Afghanistan, possibility of a peace deal there. Lots to talk about with the National Security Advisor. He was on the ground in North Korea. And of course, the big question is, despite, the issue as to the terms of how it broke down, where do we go from here? Are negotiations basically over, or is there possibility of future progress? Because at this point, Kim Jong-un has his entire nuclear arsenal, no testing, but he has kept the arsenal that the president was so upset about, with no sign that he's going to give it up.
We'll be watching it all this weekend. Fox News Sunday. Chris Wallace, thank you.
You bet, Sandra.